Good evening, I'm Boyet Benavides, welcoming everyone to the third episode of Season 5 of our RFC Tuesday podcast. This show is powered by IARFC-PH, the Philippine chapter of the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. The IARFC-PH is an association dedicated to the craft of financial consulting. The association is the sole organization authorized to conduct the RFC conversion courses as well as continuing education in the field of financial consulting. It is an honor for me to have my counterpart, the U.S. Board President of IARFC U.S. Chapter, Ali K. Baples Sr., MRFC, as our guest tonight. Brad is the president of the R&R Group, dedicated to build relationship to last a lifetime by accurately assessing cutting-edge financial products for clients' needs, goals, and objectives. He finished his financial planning course at Bryant University, a certified financial planner by the CFP Board, retirement income certified professional by the American College. He is a master registered financial consultant by IARFC, a California real estate broker's licensee by the state of California, and a certified college advisor by College Funding Solutions. Brad also has a Series 7, 63, and 65 licenses, also life, health, disability, and long-term care licenses, property and casualty licenses as well. He has an MBA and a Master of Science in Management and Leadership. Fellow RFC and guests, please join me in welcoming Brad Maples Sr., MRFC, IARFC U.S. Chapter Board President. Thank you, Brad, for spending the time with us tonight to be our guest in our Tuesday podcast. We know that you have been very active in your the U.S. chapter, and with all these things that are happening in the U.S., inflation, you have the high cost of living, you have the supply chain problems, of course, the tail end of the pandemic that's still persisting. What are the things that you can tell our RFCs with regards to how to navigate through this very difficult times?
Well, times change all the time, but there's always some sort of a curveball, to use a baseball metaphor, that comes at us. But I think that we need to use the experience and training that we've had and pretty much continue on. I mean, the stock market goes up, the stock market goes down. Mm-hmm. There's inflation here or there. It goes up, it drops down. There's many recessions. You know, hopefully we won't get into a big depression like they had a long time ago, but utilizing the things that we know about financial planning and about financial consulting, we can steer through some of the more difficult times for our clients and for ourselves by holding true to the things that we've learned. This means to, utilize what we have. No one has a time machine. No one has a crystal ball. No one has their expiration date tattooed on the back of their neck. At least I haven't seen any of those. So there's always going to be some uncertainty. So in doing that, we need to do the things that we always were taught to do. We need to tell our clients they need to have a cash reserve, but that cash reserve shouldn't be too large, because if the cash reserve is too large, then it gets eaten up by inflation. Correct. They need to have those things in place. And in times of high inflation, like I was in Argentina during a time of high inflation, and there you needed to buy your goods for the coming week and month ahead of time, because if you waited till you absolutely needed it, it was going to be higher price. So you would buy certain commodities ahead of time and plan. That's always a good thing to do. Sometimes we don't have to, but being in that type of mindset never is going to hurt when you plan ahead for things. There's always things that are going to do better in a time of high inflation and things that are going to do worse. One of the things about inflation is, it almost ensures that certain assets like property, like commodities, gold and silver, like the stock market, those things are going to be buoyed by inflation, because inflation means that the money, the currency, the fiat currency, whether it's the dollar or any other currency, as it loses its value, things become more expensive. So it's not so much that assets grow in value sometimes. Sometimes they do comparative to other assets, but a lot of times they're growing in value because the currency that is underpinning them is losing value. So a home that you buy today, in a certain number of years when it doubles, most of that growth or that increase in value of that commodity is due to the currency losing value. So, that's going to go up in value and be a better hedge against inflation than certain other things like bonds or fixed income things will be hit hard by inflation, at least in the short run, as those assets are replaced. In other words, when bonds come due and you're buying new ones, you're now buying them at a higher yield on them. So that's going to somewhat nullify those effects over time. But in the short run, certain assets are going to get hit harder than others.
For people who are midstream in their financial plan and they have already accumulated certain assets, certain investments in their portfolios, how should they reevaluate their financial status now, considering that we would probably be experiencing a very volatile environment, high interest rate, high inflation environment, and they have already set certain goals, say in the next 5 or 10 years. What should they be looking out for in their financial plan to be able to course correct towards their goals?
Well, as Susan knows, I just did an article for the upcoming register called Course Correction, or something to that thing. And it's that we always need to monitor our course. We always need to monitor where the plan is going and make small changes or large changes as needed. But I would hesitate to throw out a financial plan just because some things have changed. But I think you need to look at everything that's there and see if you should segue to something else, or whether you're staying the course will work, because coming back. And I think that should be on an individual client basis. I don't think you can say that every client. It kind of depends upon how long they have till they're going to need to spend those assets. In other words, are they in retirement or are they in something that is going to grow for a period of time? If they have the time to wait, I believe it'll probably come back and things will settle down. But if they need it in the near term, then they may need to make more drastic moves in order to salvage the portfolio or to get to where they need to go. I've seen several clients recently that just started retirement and their assets have dropped big time, and it's changed their outlook. And so we've had to do things. I mean, luckily, my clients, I don't have anybody that is in that particular situation, but a couple of my colleagues have, and I've recommended them that their clients should probably reevaluate their situation and maybe cut some expenses and other things in order to make sure that their portfolio doesn't run out.
How would you say, I'll suggest, like, for advisors to prepare themselves for navigating through this situation? Because some would probably have gone through a similar situation, but most would have this is something new for them. It's like treading in different waters for them.
I think communication with the client is a big point. I think that you need to make sure that your clients are aware of it. Don't wait until you've painted yourself into a corner and, the situation is drastic. I would contact the client and discuss it with them and explain to them the situations and have them help with the decisions. So it's not the advisor that's making a decision where they get themselves into a predicament. I've said before, my father was one of the worst investors in market items. He was great when it came to properties and real estate, et cetera. But he didn't like the stock market and was dragged unwillingly a couple of times into it. And he was a person that tended to buy high and sell low because of the way he was doing it. He listened to everyone else. And by the time he was talked into getting in, it was too late and he was paying too high of a price. And then by the time he decided to sell, it was too late and he was getting a low price. So when I got in the business over 30 years ago, I told him he needed to have a portion in the market in order to have diversification and not have everything in real estate. And we did that, but he constantly listened to the news, and the news would say, if you're in the market, you need to be getting out. And so he'd be panicking and say he'd lost money. And I'd say, well, when did you lose money? Did you sell? And he goes, well, no, I didn't sell, but I'm down. And I said, until you sell, you haven't locked in a loss. You haven't got a gain either. So we don't know where you are until that happens. But right now, you're not needing the money, right? No, it's for the future. And so we rode out one up and down, and then we rode out a second with him always fretting about it. The third time, I was thinking to myself when he called me to ask about it, oh my gosh, here we go again. But he said, I was watching on TV and they were saying that we need to sell, but we're not going to because I don't need the money right now. So we'll just ride through it, right? And I said, yes, you finally got it. And so it worked. So I like to make sure my clients know ahead of time that, don't panic. The market is going to go down and it's going to go up and it's going to go down again. And so it's a roller coaster ride. But normally, if you look back in history, it's always gone up over the long run, and it's been one of the best hedges against inflation. So now that changes when you have short-term needs. If you're taking money out of a retirement plan and the market is going down, those sequence of returns risks can be extremely dangerous. And that's where we need to look and see if we need to move to something more safe or change the plan, because we anticipate the long-term ups and downs, but short-term ups and downs when you're pulling out can be much more dangerous. So that's where you've got to run the numbers, recrunch everything, look at alternatives. Sometimes there's no alternatives. In a down market, there's sometimes aren't any good alternatives. So it's sometimes picking the lesser of the evils, trying to find something that's not going to be as bad. But that's what I would say to an advisor. Don't panic. If you panic, your clients are going to panic.
Yes.
So you need to show strength and show that, if you haven't been through this before, you've at least studied it and know what's happened in the past. Now, past performance it can never be considered an indication of what future issues are going to be, but sometimes it's the best thing that we've got. Insurance companies look over the past in order to predict what returns are going to be. So do, stocks. So we do some of that. You can't guarantee those things because we just don't know what it's going to be, but it's sometimes the best thing that we've got is to look at that.
And talking about insurance, how would you position insurance now in terms of providing a safety net for situations like this?
Okay, insurance is always going to be key and critical. It's one of the things I call the foundation of a good financial plan. Along with a cash reserve, you've got to insure those things on there, whether it's life insurance, whether it's disability insurance, health insurance, all those things. Your best financial plan can be ruined by not having the right amounts and the right kinds of insurances. If you don't have those, you can be sunk in very short order. So you've got to have those. One of the things, we haven't had the high inflation rates, at least here in the United States. I know certain countries around the world have had higher, but we haven't had those higher. So you could get an amount of insurance and pretty much sit on it for quite a while because it takes a long time for that amount to be eroded. But in a period of high inflation, you've got to look at what amount of insurance that person needs today, but you may need to extrapolate 5, 10, 15 years into the future and say, we may want to go a little higher because now you're insurable. That may not be the case in the future. And with this type of inflation, the amount that we're talking about insurance may not last very long or accomplish what you really needed to accomplish. So you're going to have to be more forward looking than normal in order to be able to do that. So, I've always talked about with my clients that, we're trying to cover what we know and what we think we know, but there may be a time where this may not be sufficient due to, higher inflation rates.
Thanks for
because
those.
I feel like you need to work backwards into an insurance policy. For example, if you're doing a life insurance policy on someone, that number that you're coming up with needs to really meet their needs. So what your insurance policy is to do is to cover the lost wages of the working person should they die prematurely, cover burial expenses, cover, paying off any debts. It could be to provide for schooling for the non-working spouse or for the children. Those are the things you got to cover. So you put down those amounts, but depending upon how much in the future those are, you may have to put an inflation factor in there and say, today $1 million might cover it, but if we're looking down the road when the kids will be going to school or when this could happen, it may need to be $1.5 million or $2 million in order to do that. So, we may need to, and the other option is to buy a certain amount now and look in 5 or 10 years at getting more. The problem with that approach is that at the time when you might want to get more, it may be tougher because you're older, so it's going to cost a little more. Or if you've had any kind of health issues, it may make it more difficult to do that.
Thanks for those thoughts and those recommendations, Brad. It's surely going to be very challenging for RFCs who have not gone through the same volatility as probably we had. So we should learn first how to deal with it. We just learn about it, and then we should handhold our clients to be able to allay the fears that it's a temporary thing, that the tide will turn at some point in time, and make sure that we have enough cash reserves, we are properly insured to be able to withstand that period. Talking about being the chapter board president for IARFC, when did you go into this phase in your life?
Well, as I said before, I've done this for over 30 years. When I got involved with the IARFC, it was always with the thought of being able to give a little bit back to the advisor community. So I was elected to the board. How many years has it been? 3, 4, 5 years ago? I don't exactly know now, but I was on the board, and then I was the treasurer on the board, and then the newly elected this year president of the U.S. chapter board. So that's kind of how that happened.
How has it been becoming chapter board president for IARFC? What are the changes, or what are the challenges that and the excitement that you face now?
It's been more involved than I really anticipated, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's taken a little bit more time. I have to say that there were a few more things that I've been involved in. We are in the U.S. chapter calling on people to be regional directors, in other words, trying to build up the membership. And we've spent quite a bit of time on that. I do have committee assignments as well as being the chairman of the board. So it's been challenging, but it's been very rewarding. And we've got good people. I can't say enough about Susan and Charlotte and Vicky and all the staff at the IARFC. They're just extremely good to work with, and I really appreciate the job that they do.
It's the same thing for us here in the Philippines. We started revitalizing the community 2 years ago. And since then, we have been encouraging a lot of our inactive RFCs to be able to reactivate their membership, become more active in participating with the different activities, especially in terms of encouraging more members, having more participants in our RFC conversion courses, and doing continuing education courses. We're firming up our arrangements now to be able to reactivate again our links with the Visayas and Mindanao RFC group, which we think would be very, very strong, and because of also the number of RFCs in those regions, it presents for us an opportunity to become a more influential group within the financial advisory community. What do you think would be how we can learn from the US experience in terms of expanding membership, in terms of having more, we have more regional directors, probably?
Well, our experience on that is fairly new. It just started up. We only have a few of them, although we're looking and meeting all the time, trying to find more. So I'm not sure that I would be the expert on that as yet. What I can tell you is some of the directions that we've tried to go was previously, I think some decisions were made on the board that caused us to had some unforeseen consequences. I don't think that enough thought was put into them. So I try to make sure that anything that we do, we try to explore what's going to happen and think about what kind of negative consequences we might have before we do that. I'm very reticent about choosing something to do and jumping on it before we really put some careful consideration into it. So we had some things with the plan competition that we needed to work on, some changes that were made, and we've kind of gone back to how it was before. So I've tried to make sure everything is transparent to where we're very above board with everything that we're doing. There's nothing that's happening in secret. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not imposing my will on everybody, that it really is a consensus of the board. I'm trying to help lead without trying to drag everybody where I want them to go. I can be persuasive, and I try to do that at times, but by the same token, I want to listen to everybody's views and make sure that we get good representation, because I know I don't have a monopoly on all truth or all reasoning.
That's good advice, Brad. And I guess it's something also that we can do here in the Philippines to make sure that we get everybody's views, consensus, and of course, involve more people to be able to expand our membership and our influence in the financial planning community. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time today, Brad. Our RFCs definitely learned a lot about hand-holding clients during these turbulent and volatile times. To learn more about how, as RFCs, we can surmount the headwinds coming our way, we have an annual forum on August 20 IARFC PH will hold its first face-to-face forum cum graduation at the Makati Sports Club. The annual forum is from 1 to 5 p.m. and is free for all active RFCs, and graduation follows at 5:30 p.m. We invite all RFC graduates to renew their membership and enjoy the connection and networking with the global community of RFCs through iarfc.org. Our continuing education seminars and conferences are free for registered RFC members. And of course, stay tuned always to our RFC Tuesday podcast. For renewal information, please contact Ms. Arlene Baguyo at irfcph@gmail.com or 0917-645-7846. So please contact IRFCPH for your membership renewals. Our podcast episodes are shown every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So that's why it's important to follow us on Facebook. Episodes are pre-recorded and are broadcast through Facebook Live. On behalf of our executive producer, Ms. Grace De Vera Escobar, this is RFC Tuesday podcast saying,
and always remember, it's better to be in the know than the last to know.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight. Thank you, and good night, everyone. We'll see you in the next Tuesday podcast.